Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. May I say to the House, e ngā mana, e ngā iwi, e ngā reo, e ngā hauawha, e ngā karangaranga maha, tēnā koutou katoa. Mā roa lei, tālo whalawa, ki rana tātou katoa toa, ni sa pula vinaka, whakalofa lahi atu, nihao ma na maste sashwa kao. And I think it is important, Mr. Speaker, that I reflect to you the languages that are spoken by the people of the Auckland region to give you a bit of a taste of the diversity that exists in the Auckland region. I want to also use those comments to acknowledge the hundreds and hundreds of submitters that came from the four corners of Auckland to put forward their views, to put forward their opinion, who took time, the energy, took time off work to be able to contribute to the work of the Select Committee and to this debate overall. I particularly want to also acknowledge my colleagues of the Labour Party who have by and large attempted to do their best to reflect to the government the views that have been expressed by the people of Auckland. Acknowledge in particular the Honourable George Hawkins, who has been leading our team of MPs on that Select Committee. I also want to acknowledge the other members of the Select Committee on the opposition who were part, and to be fair, thank also the members from the government side. One of the submitters that the Select Committee members would be aware of was Councillor Efukoka, who submitted in Manukau. And the first question, Mr. Speaker, that he asked the government members and the Select Committee, he says to the government, "Are you listening?" And Mr. Speaker, there was a deafening silence. And the submitters in that room, including Māori women from the Māori Women's Welfare League, then chastised the ACT member on the Select Committee because he was playing on his phone. He wasn't listening to the submitters. And I think throughout this debate, there has been this theme that has been coming from the people of Auckland, that this government is not listening to the voices of the people that are going to be affected by this change. We've got to ask ourselves, what is this debate all about? From Labour's perspective, it is about setting up a vehicle, a structural vehicle, a democratic governance model that will ensure the full potential of the Auckland region is released now and into the future. Labour wants the Auckland region to be dynamic, inclusive, thriving and progressive for all people, young and old, male and female, Māori and Pākehā, Pacific and Asian, Africans, Latin Americans, all the people. You cannot take everyone in this journey into the future, Mr. Speaker, unless we ensure that the diversity of its communities is acknowledged, recognised and tapped into. As a region, and indeed as a country, we must be comfortable with people of different colours, who speak different languages, who have different religious beliefs, who have different lifestyles. And we must take this diversity and find our unity and strengthen it. Our unity and our diversity is what we say in Manukau. Auckland is, after all, the region that impacts on the rest of the nation. It has been said that if Auckland sneezes, the rest of New Zealand gets a cold. The debate then is about how do we ensure that Auckland now and into the future becomes strong, dynamic, thriving and a progressive region that benefits all the people. To enable us to understand the government structure and for the benefit of our public, we've got to ask what are the values that drive this change. From Labour's perspective, we acknowledge that any change to the government structure requires united support from the regional local authorities and its peoples. Labour values consultation and taking everyone along in the change process. Government does not. It listens, but it does not hear. It rushed through the first bill, snuffing out the life of those existing local governments. It rushed through the Select Committee process, which has been called the sham by the people of Auckland, and it no doubt will rush through in the third bill. Labour values a Māori voice. The government does not. It listens to the race-based arguments of the ACT Party, the party that has been dubbed the 1% party, and enhances Mr. Hyde's mana and none else. Labour values inclusiveness, where diversity is a strength. Government does not. It instead is determined and deliberately excluding Māori, Pacific Asian, young people, people with disability, because nowhere in that bill is there any recognition of that diversity. The Aotearoa Ward is a ward of only 35,000 people, about 20,000 voters. And this is in response to comments by the ACT Party member. There are 2 councillors that represent that ward on Manukau City Council. And yes, I was elected from that ward, and I became Deputy Mayor because I was elected by the councillors of the Manukau region. 20,000, 2 councillors representing voters of 20,000 Aotearoa Ward. What is changing, and the big difference here, is that we are deleting or extinguishing the life for those councillors or those local authorities, but instead replacing it with 20 councillors representing 1.4 million people in Auckland region. Is that democracy, Mr. Speaker? I say to you, it is not. That is how the people of Auckland feel. 20 councillors representing 1.4 people, that's over 70,000 population for each councillor. That is more than the population represented by most MPs. I want to say, in terms of his comments about the view of Pacific people supporting Māori seats, it is the view of Pacific people that if the establishment or the man doesn't get things right for Māori, how on earth will they get it right for minorities? And what is wrong with having everybody on the governance structure? What is wrong with enabling participation from Māori, Pacific, Asian, African, Latin Americans? There is nothing. But what drives their intent to not allow for that participation is fear and their intention of keeping the governance, the decision-making to a select few. I want to say, sir, that Labour supports the reform of the Auckland governance. It always has. But it wanted to take everybody with them. That is why there was a Royal Commission, which took 18 months. There needed to be more consultation. But we are saying that we oppose this bill because it is flawed, it is democratic, and the whole consultation process has been a sham. There are 2 documents on the table that no doubt eventually the public will get to understand. The first is the Select Committee report, and on the whole, I have to say there was genuine attempt by the Select Committee members to reflect what was said by submitters. So generally, that report provides the evidence and it's basically reasonable. But the other document is the bill itself and the amendments that have been made. The actual clauses in the bill does not reflect the sentiments of what is in that report. And I want to just briefly say, when it comes to local boards, and I was pleased that the Select Committee listened to what was said by the public. But if you were to look at the report and then compare it with the amendments in the Act, they don't align. There is no recognition. I'll tell you, purpose. In terms of local board, the Clause 10 has a purpose. Nice words. Clause 12 has membership, 4 to 9 members. It says that there's a status as an incorporated society. It recognizes functions, duties, responsibilities, the principles for allocating responsibility. It identifies activities that must be included in its long-term council community plan. It talks about a funding policy. It talks about community board, local boards having a plan. But the whole essence and crux of that is those local boards cannot act without agreement from the 20 people on the local council. In essence, Mr. Speaker, they cannot move other than if they don't get permission from the local council. Again, you have this authority that is going to have an impact on the lives of people in Auckland being held by a minority few. I want to briefly just say that Māori seats was an important point in this debate. Others may say that it was a small point. It was a significant point. I want to just read out, sir, something that I think the House will benefit from, which came from Ngāti Whātua. They say, it is the presence of Māori which makes a large part of what makes New Zealand distinct from anywhere else. What makes New Zealand and New Zealanders different. That is an important quality which should be valued, treasured, and safeguard it. Māori have a distinct contribution to make to New Zealand society. Ensuring a place at the table enables such a contribution.
I regret to advise the member that his time has expired.
Better, sir, than what this government is proposing.
I call Simon Bridges.